Stanley, and hello and welcome to Disability World, where we discuss topics of interest for and about people in the disability population and disability community with leaders in the community who are advocates and activists in business, education, politics, entertainment, sports, music, and more. I'm your host, Norma Stanley, and today we are going to be speaking with Miss Katherine McLaughlin, and she is an expert in the area of sexuality and individuals with developmental disabilities. So let's see what Miss Katherine McLaughlin has to share with us today. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for being a part of Disability World today. I'm really excited to talk to you because, I have a daughter who's an adult with disabilities. She has both intellectual and physical disabilities. And, I don't know if she knows anything about sexual anything. And if she does, I don't know how to communicate any of that to her. She's 35 or will be. And so what made you decide that this is something that you need to focus on? Because I know it's a very important topic for our community. And, my daughter may not be in that space, but so many other families are. So tell us about your business and why you decided to focus in that specific area.
Yeah, I will. I think it's a couple of things. I was doing lots of sexuality education. I've been an educator for close to 30 years. And probably about 20 years ago, special educators reached out to me as well as developmental disability agencies. And they said, we really need some help with this topic. So that was happening. And then at the same time, I ended up having a spinal cord injury and started using a wheelchair. So both of those things happening at the same time, I started to realize that people, all of a sudden I was using a wheelchair and roaming around the world, and people were looking at me differently, even though I was the same person.
Right.
So I got, interested in disability awareness. And then at the same time, people were saying, hey, what about sexuality in people with disabilities? So it kind of all came together at that time. So that's what I was most interested in. And that there was such a lack of people receiving education at all with disabilities. And so there's such a great need. And so I thought, I can do this, and have been doing this work for a while.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I know that, I guess depending on the person that you're dealing with or the group of people that you're dealing with, the circumstances, it can change. Because I don't know how to say it. When my daughter's in a day program, and when I was searching for a place for her to stay or for her to go during the day once she graduated from high school, excuse me, one of the places, there were mostly adults. These are all adults of different ages. And she, at that time, was just around 20 years old. And, they graduated out of high school at 22. So she was around that age when I put her into the day program. But I was just doing some searching just to find out. And one of the places, to me, had too many nooks and crannies where people can slip in and out and not be seen. And it just made me nervous. And there was this older gentleman who they said, just ignore him. They had a blanket over his lap. They said, ignore him because he obviously was masturbating in public.
Right.
I was like, oh my God, that kind of freaked me out.
Yeah.
And so I said, excuse me, my throat is dry. I said, no, I don't think she'd be going there. But I didn't even ask about how they would handle it and why they had him in public
Right.
doing that.
Right.
But I know they don't understand, so they just do what they do.
Right. Yeah, and maybe they didn't have the skills to really talk about it or address it or teach public and private. And I mean, I don't think we're very good at talking about the topic in general. Yeah, and then you add disability, and forget it, right? And so I think that's part of it. And I think as parents, you feel very protective, and there's high statistics around sexual abuse, and so it's hard to. You must feel like you have to protect your daughter all the time, and that it isn't a positive part of her life in a way. It's more of a negative. So it's difficult.
Well, I'm very protective about who she's around and who's around her, and it's total strangers, even family. And thank you, Lord, none of that has ever happened in my family. But you just have to be so aware, and because she doesn't talk, so she's not somebody who can communicate. Although I do know she knows something about, because because she's she's total care.
Yeah.
So I do everything for her in terms of toileting and changing and hygiene, all those things.
Yep.
So she doesn't let you get too close to that area unless she knows what you're doing. If it looks like you're doing anything else, she will kick you. So she understands something.
Yeah. And I think too, like that bodily autonomy, like, does she know it's her body and she can say, that's amazing. I mean, that's good stuff. Right there, don't touch me, or however she would say it.
Yes,
non-verbally. Yeah,
she does it non-verbally. She'll let you know. You will get a kick like a bronco. Yeah. if something that she doesn't like, she'll let you know.
Great.
And so, and I think that is, and she's very strong. She's tiny. She's underdeveloped. I mean, in terms of she's tiny for her age. She's only about 80 pounds.
Yep.
Which works for me because I have to lift her and carry her and do things. So I'm glad she's a little bit smaller.
Right.
But at the same time, she's very strong.
Yes. Good.
Very strong. But some people, but at the same time, she is very affectionate. So, she's a flirt when it comes to guys. She likes being around guys, so that makes me a little nervous,
Right.
How do you handle that? So I just let her do her flirting, and, she likes to kiss people she doesn't know sometimes, and it's like, okay, well, how do you handle that?
Right.
Without making it seem like you're taking it to another level.
Right. And I think too that it's so tricky to know, and I guess I'm curious how you communicate about things with her.
I just talk to her. She has good comprehension in a lot of ways, even though she can't express herself. So we have never had a discussion about anything like this. Yeah. Because that has not been her experience.
Yeah.
So I just pay attention to certain things.
Yes.
But, she and I have never had that discussion. I just watch how she interacts with people. Mm-hmm. She's always blowing people kisses, and, she likes, especially if she's somebody, like we went on a cruise one time, and she was flirting with the guy serving us drinks. And I mean, truly flirting. I was like, how does she know? She doesn't know she's flirting, but I know, I can see what it is. I was like, what? She just lights up when men are around.
Yeah, so she's get those feelings.
Whatever those, so she gets the same feelings that everybody else gets.
That's right. Right.
Yeah, so it's just interesting to watch how she handles that. And one of the things that maybe you can help with this, I've been having a hard time finding a GYN that will deal with, because she's never had one of those exams, as somebody who's almost in her, but she's never been sexually active either.
Yeah.
And a lot of doctors are afraid to deal with this. And I've been having because she would have to be knocked out to get one of those exams.
Oh, okay.
She would never sit still for that.
Right. Because like you said, she'll say, no, don't. Yeah. Right.
I don't want to sit still for that. So she's definitely at a whole nother level when it comes to that. So that has been a challenge. So do you ever hear about those kind of things? Because I've known, my doctor, which we're in the process of searching of the doctors like that.
Yeah, I think it's really tricky because, a lot of, like you're saying, doctors are hesitant because they don't know disability very well. And so they, you tend to have to go to like somebody like a specialist or something. And that's really hard to find too. So lots of times I found that I had to educate doctors on my disability and things like that. And I guess I would be curious, what is her
cerebral palsy?
Yeah. Okay. And so, yeah, just do they know anything about that? And is there anything they need to know about her disability that might come up? I know, like with spinal cord injury, you can have autonomic dysreflexia. I don't know if that's true for cerebral palsy, but so people are scared. They don't know the person well enough, and then so I'm not sure if you're connected to any medical institution that focuses on disability, because they might be able to help with that.
I'm in search for dentistry. I found one when she was young, but and that was a challenge too, because they're like the only people here. It's gotten better since she was a little girl, but there's maybe there's not that many still in the dentistry area.
Yes.
And so, but this is the area that I just need to address, because I just want to make sure everything is okay.
Right. Of course. Yeah. And I think too, just some of those stereotypes about people with disabilities, like, well, they don't need a GYN exam.
Exactly.
Because, and so I think you're also trying to break down those stereotypes and say, no, she still needs to be checked, even if she hasn't been sexually active.
Right. Mammograms, all the things that women deal with, she still needs to have those exams.
Exactly.
And I'm having a hard time, but I'm going to find them. I'm going to find somebody.
I'm not worried about it. I'm sure you will. Yeah, that's great.
So tell us about, the training that you do. Like you said, disability organizations and educators asked you to kind of share that information with them. What kind of training do you provide?
Yeah, so I do lots of different ones, but one in particular is becoming a sexuality educator and trainer. And so what I found is 20 years ago, people were asking me to come in and do the classes, me to and now they're saying, okay, we'll do it, but we just need your help. So I'm training other people.
Train the trainer.
Yeah, so people come to this 3-day training, then they go back with 3 curriculum. 1 to lead parent workshops on how to talk to your kids about sexuality, how to lead staff training. So how do you manage the man with the blanket over him in the day? Things like that. And then how do you lead classes for individuals with intellectual developmental disabilities? So then they go back to their agency or their community and they teach these classes, because it seems there's 3 populations that need training. It's not just the people with the disability, it's their parents and, caregivers and staff. And so everybody needs training in this.
Absolutely.
So rather than me training all these people, I'm training others, like you said, to train the trainer.
But you focus on the sexuality component of it?
Yeah, and relationships too.
And relationships, okay.
Yeah,
and
like different
respect with regards to relationships.
I'm sorry, say that again?
In regard to what, in relationships, you say, in what way?
Yeah. So one of the things that comes up is just not understanding the different types of relationships that you're in with people. So you've got your doctor and your teacher and your mother and your friend, and just kind of understanding those types of relationships rather than putting everybody in as a friend, like a stranger is your new friend, sort of understanding those healthy boundaries around relationships. Okay. And then how do you interact in those relationships? What kind of topics do you talk about in those relationships? So it's learning that so that, people aren't vulnerable.
So do most of the people that you deal with, are they verbal? When they aren't verbal, how do you get those kind of messages across, I guess, to their family members, I guess, to help?
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. So I think there's a couple things. One is they may be nonverbal, and we have these communication boards and cards that you can use with people. So that's one population. And now we're also looking at, people that have more severe disabilities. So what do they need exactly? And so we're creating some materials now for that. So I think for me, it's people with disabilities are not getting sexuality education. The rates of sexual abuse and unplanned pregnancy
very high.
Very high. And so how do we reach people? And like you said, in the beginning, it was people who could have conversations and discussions with disabilities. And now, okay, someone who's nonverbal. Okay, now, so that everyone with a disability, no matter what, is getting the sexuality, relationship education that they need. But it's a process. And I do feel like the parents have a big role when working with people who have more profound disabilities, because you know your daughter so well. Mm-hmm. You know how to teach her things. And it's more individualized usually with that population. So so that's kind of the thinking, is how do we reach everybody?
Exactly. And I think it's so important for group home owners, places like that, to really get that information. I've read a couple of articles over the, recently that just bothered me because, this young poor girl was in she was in a nursing home, and she was disabled. She couldn't talk, whatever. She was obviously raped. So she got pregnant, and it was somebody who worked there.
Yes.
And I was incensed for that poor child. Obviously, she didn't have anybody who was paying attention.
Right.
Because how does that, I don't understand that, but that's the kind of stuff that, I just lose it over.
Yeah. But I know there are a lot of people working on, okay, how do you screen workers? And because that is often someone that they know, not a stranger coming out of the bushes, right? So how do you
that's typical young women also, and boys. It happens to boys too.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I think it's like a whole system. And I know there's, I'm part of this group called the Natalie Project, and you might want to interview her as well. And she has a sister who was sexually abused and is nonverbal, and it's really about how do we prevent this system-wide.
Yes.
That it's not necessarily about teaching, her about stuff. It's about making sure she's in a safe environment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's really, you don't want to be overprotective, but we have to be, for those who don't understand,
right,
and who they don't have the capability of guarding themselves from the danger. So we have to do it for them.
Right.
and I mean, people probably think I'm overly so, but I just don't want to take any chances. I'm just very particular.
Right. And I guess I'd be curious if your daughter is interested in a relationship.
I don't know. That's the one thing. I can't imagine how I would handle that if that was the case. There's young men at her day program all the time trying to tell me that she's interested in them and can they take her on a date and all those kind of things. And she's a very cute little girl. She models. She doesn't walk. She walks a little bit. Yeah. But she's a wheelchair user too. Yeah. But yeah, she's cute. And I know the men notice her. Yeah. And she probably notices the men too. But I am not in that space yet where I'm ready for her to go on a date. And of course, I'll be there if I ever. When she was young, one of my girlfriends has a son who's a few years older than her, and we would do double date type things when they were teenagers. Went to the prom together and things like that. He's a little bit more advanced with his intellectual and physical disabilities, so they can't do too many things together now. But when they were younger, they did a lot of things together. And, she would always go up to him and kiss him, whenever they saw each other. That's the first thing she would do. And she still does it whenever she goes to visit him at the group home that he lives in. But I don't think I would handle that very well. If she had the understanding, I think I would, I don't know what to tell you. I think it would be hard for me. But because she doesn't have the understanding, I just,
Right. Yeah.
I just don't think about that. That's the one thing I don't have to think about.
Yeah.
I want her to be happy. I don't want her to miss out on anything. I'm one of those people. I want her to have everything that anybody else can experience.
Yeah.
This particular experience, she may not. I don't know what God's going to do. But since she doesn't really understand what it is, I can't see it happening. At least not,
Yeah.
If I'm trying to, I don't know how to quite explain it. Let's put it this way. It won't happen by force. That's the only way it probably will happen if I have anything to do with it. And God forbid, that person won't be here for long.
Right. Yes. Well, I think there's a lot of people with disabilities that they want to be in relationships that they just kiss. It doesn't have to be a full relationship too. And it sounds like she had some of that with this young man too.
Yeah. We were always in the room when it happened. So it's like, we saw it all the time between his mother and me. Yeah. So, the point is that they have the same feelings.
Yes.
They don't know what the feelings are, but they have the same feelings. Yeah. And, like I said, I wish she was at a stage where she could understand and, possibly have a relationship in that space. But she's not. So, she'll just have to be happy with all the other things that we try to do to make sure she's happy.
Right.
But the families that do have children that understand and want those things, that has to be very challenging.
Right.
Well, maybe not. Some people, they tell their children to do whatever. I've never been that person, even if she was a typical child.
Right.
There are boundaries. There's certain things you do, certain things you don't do, and certain ways you do it. And,
Yeah, no. And I think, a lot of parents do want their children to know about this because they feel like that education is prevention.
Yes.
And so they want them to know about it, and they share their values about it too, so, and why they feel that way. And so I think there are a lot of parents that really think it is important and it's right for their child. And then others that don't see their child as a sexual person at all. Yeah. And so, they're more sort of resistant about it, even if the person could understand.
Yeah.
This feeling of, I don't want to open that can of worms, and I don't think they have those feelings, and lots of people do.
I'm sure she does. I'm almost positive she does. But but tell us a little bit about how people can reach you if they want more information. Unfortunately, this interview, these go so fast. I would love to be able to stay on for an hour. Sure. But tell us more about anything you have coming up, any trainings that you may have coming up, and how people can reach you if they want more information about Elevatus training.
Thank you. Yeah. So I have a website, and it's Elevatus, so ELEVATUS training. So Elevatus, people with disabilities.com. And there's a resource page. So there's lots of free resources that people can download, print out for parents, for staff, for individuals. So get some, like you said, reading some articles and starting to learn a little more about it. The trainings we have coming up are these 3-day trainings. But also one of the things that we also have are shorter trainings too. So we have one that is for people who support people with intellectual developmental disabilities that are using dating apps to meet people.
Interesting.
Which makes people very nervous.
That makes me nervous, and I know.
Yeah, you know the look on your face. And so how do you help someone be able to use a tool and be safe? Because one of the things that a lot of the people with disabilities say is that when people restrict them and tell them they can't do something, they work around them.
Absolutely.
And that, like,
the ones who have understanding, I can understand that. The ones who are independent and I could totally get it. Yeah.
Yes. So they work around them, and they say they're more risky then. And also, if anything bad happens, they don't feel like they can go to the person that they went around and didn't listen to. So I'm always saying to people, like, we want to be in these conversations. We can't control people. They're independent and live their lives, and they're adults. And so we want to be part of it and help educate them.
Yes.
Ignorance is not bliss.
It is not bliss.
Yeah.
So give us a couple of your social media places where they can find you.
Yeah, so we have, we're on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Okay.
And so check out the website, tells you all about the work that we're doing. And one thing that we do a lot of is work with self-advocates or people with disabilities. And so they often will say nothing about us without us.
Yes.
And so when I first started doing this work, I was writing a curriculum, And they said, hold on, nothing about us without us. We want to help create the materials.
Right.
Oh, and we also want to be one of the teachers of the materials. And I was like, aha.
Yes.
So the curriculum is designed for them to be the sexuality educators. So some of the people with disabilities are teaching classes as well, which
That's
is
very cool.
very cool. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to speak on this topic that is a little weird for it was a little bit for me, but I wanted to talk to you because I know that this is something that parents are dealing with.
Yes.
And like you say, educators and organizations, and they need to know how to handle it. So thank you for doing what you do. And I would love to see that lady you were talking about too, because I think that would definitely be an interesting discussion. So thank you for sharing. I'll reach out to you in the email.
Okay, that sounds great.
Thank you for your time, and I look forward to learning more about Elevators. I may actually take one of your courses just so.
Oh, that would be great.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you so much. You have a blessed one.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Well, that was such a great conversation with Katherine McLaughlin. And I just really just appreciate her sharing that information with me, because it's something that I've always had questions about. So I'm thankful that she shared that, and she is a resource for if I ever need to know more about that for my child. And definitely if you guys need to know more about it for your children, go out and reach out to her. So that's our show for today. Thank you for being a part of Disability World this week. And we look forward to bringing you more interesting guests who are working to affect positive change for the disability community. Until next time, be blessed.